We have reached the midway point in the NCAA trial, otherwise known as the Ed O'Bannon case. I'm Jim Baskel with the latest ESPN headlines. To bring us up to speed, ESPN investigative reporter Tom Farrey. And Tom, where are we thus far in this case?
We are exactly at the halfway point of a 3-week trial. The plaintiffs pretty much owned the first half of the trial. They were able to present their witnesses, and the NCAA had a chance to cross-examine them. There were a couple witnesses who went earlier that were from the NCAA side, but now we're moving into the NCAA side of the case, including the testimony of Mark Emmert.
Hey, Tom, former CBS executive Neil Pilson testified last week. Why was his testimony so important?
Well, you know, Pilson has been in the business for a long time. He was the guy who helped build up the NCAA tournament, did the deals between CBS and the NCAA. Has a wealth of experience in the space. The NCAA brought him in to essentially help make the case that if we move toward a model in which schools are allowed to pay athletes anything beyond the value of an athletic scholarship, including some cut of media revenues, licensing revenues, then it will hurt college sports. Pilson's point of view is that fans will turn off from watching, Alabama play Auburn or whoever. Alabama is not a great example because he did make a point about that in the case about how Alabama fans will watch no matter what. But that college sports in general will suffer if we move away from the amateurism model. The part of the appeal of the game is that we know these players are not being quote unquote paid.
Kind of had a slip of the tongue in a sense about Alabama being a pro team as well. You talked about Mark Emmert, the NCAA president. He will testify on Thursday. What can we expect from that testimony?
Emmert will make the case that education and athletics are intertwined, that it's not just about doing business, it's not just commercial activity, that we are in the business of educating athletes, and the role that they play in universities has any number of other benefits, from paying for women's sports to men's minor sports to just adding to the vitality of campuses, that they really are not just there as athletes first, but they're there as students first.
Tom, for the layman, explain why this trial is so important for the players.
Well, this trial is important for anyone who follows college sports because the rules are set up in a way that could be changed dramatically. I mean, this is a huge trial. This thing it was filed in 2009. The NCAA did everything they could to prevent this thing from reaching its day in court. It has gotten that day in court, and no matter what happens coming out of the back end, it will be appealed by either side. But what we're seeing here is the potential for the foundation of college sports to be shaken. I mean, if athletes are able to receive a cut of licensing and media revenues, how does that change competition, if at all? How does that change the product that fans consume? How does that change the experience of athletes? How does that change the recruiting process? A lot of these things are unknowns. And the NCAA in this case is trying to make the argument that a lot of bad things are going to happen, and the players are essentially saying, "Well, prove it, and give us data that supports that gut instinct of yours."
So you more or less told us we're at halftime, so to speak. What sense do you get about where we're headed? What direction this trial is headed as we go to the second half of the trial?
Well, it's kind of fascinating. One of the things we've gotten a glimpse of is what the world of college sports might look like if the players are successful and gain this injunction saying that the NCAA cannot enforce this particular rule, banning players from receiving compensation beyond their scholarships. And what Michael Halsfeld, the lead attorney for the plaintiff, says is what will happen is that it'll empower the conferences. So the conferences will be able to get together and make up their own rules as it relates to player compensation. So the SEC, for instance, might say, you know what, we're going to give players, pick a number, 32% of our licensing revenues, or 12%. I don't know. It doesn't matter what the number is. But we're going to pick a number. We're all going to agree on that, right? Vandy, Alabama, okay, good. And we're going to be able to cap it. And they'd be able to do that because the SEC, as large as it is, does not have what they call market power. It doesn't control the entire the U.S. in the same way that the NCAA rules do. It just owns whatever, 20, 30% of the market share out there. So each individual conference can come up with a model that makes sense for it. So if the SEC picks 32%, the Big Ten might say, well, we're going to give 25%, but we're also going to give lifetime scholarships, and it's all the way through grad school, or whatever, other benefits. And as long as the conferences don't get in a room together and say, okay, we're all going to agree on 28%, right? Then they'll be fine. They won't be in violation of the nation's antitrust laws because none of those conferences alone have market power.
A lot to look forward to in the second half of this case. He's ESPN investigative reporter Tom Farrey. Tom, thanks for the insight, and I encourage you to read Tom's column right here on ESPN.com as it details the case to this stage, the halfway point of the Ed O'Bannon trial. I'm Jim Baswell with the latest.